Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 218 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 74 of A Storm of Swords, that's Arya 13.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters, geography, etc. of this chapter. How are you, Mackelly?
I'm doing well. I'm doing all right. It feels like a long week. It's only Wednesday, and I feel like it's Thursday evening already. I guess it's because we just had a 4-day weekend, and
yes, we're Thanksgiving time here in the United States. And,
yes,
we've been working together this week quite a bit, which is unusual. I have imposed a bunch of work on everybody that we work with, and
you have. Yes, you have.
Nobody's happy, believe me.
Not of your own fault, though. You're just the messenger.
I've begun to question that, actually. I've begun to question whether or not I've brought this upon myself, because basically I asked the question, and then those in charge said, "Yes, let's do that." And,
I didn't know that bit. Maybe not share that bit with everybody.
Yes. So on the day after Thanksgiving, which is known as Black Friday, a bunch of guys from work arranged a soccer tournament, and 56 of us went and played soccer on Friday morning.
Oh, wow.
And we played a 14 tournament. Yeah, a bunch of us.
That's a lot.
We had a great time. We all put in $20 and we got a shirt, some snacks, some Gatorade, and some beer afterwards, and the fields.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. My team was very good. We drafted teams to make the teams as close as possible, but we had it was mostly guys we worked with, but there was also some sons and like friends of sons.
Right.
So my team ended up with a lot of teenagers on it.
That's either really good or really bad.
Well, that was the thing. We were like, it's a chance. If they're not as good as we think they might be, then my team could be really terrible. Turned out they were all sensational. Really good. And so my team won the tournament, and
nice.
We dominated, and we still had fun, but it was a little bit unfair just how good these kids were. But
and they didn't get tired either, I bet.
No, God, no. They were they were so good. But they, one of them was being scouted by a Division 1 college. So,
wow, that's good.
Kind of level, yeah. So the reason I bring this up is because it was a funny story. So my team was very bimodal in its distribution of ages. We had this little lump at sort of 16 to 18. Then we had a big emptiness. And then beyond 40, we had another sort of mountain of the rest of us. Kind of thing.
Okay.
And one of the team at one point said, "Oh, God, does anyone have any ibuprofen?" One of the over 40s.
Sure, yeah.
And one of the teenagers said, "Have you got a headache?"
Can't possibly fathom why you might need it otherwise. You're just out running around for hours and hours.
So that cracked us up. It was just like could not understand why you would be asking for this other than for a headache.
Yeah. Well, that's cool that you guys won. Very good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a very meaningful tournament. I mean, I wasn't like...
No, but it's neat.
Yeah, I always enjoy winning, believe me.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the few things I ever won as part of a team was back in my golf writing days when I wrote for a particular national golf media outlet, and we were at a pro-am, and it was a Hooters Tour pro-am, and my team won the pro-am, and I got a Hooters golf bag that's been in my attic for I've never actually used it, but I've had it for like 20 some years. So
it's orange and white, and obviously a Hooters bag.
Yeah, and it says Hooters down the side, yes, in very large letters. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're making a statement if you go playing golf with that over your shoulder.
I am. I definitely would be, yeah. I've never actually put a club in it, but I also haven't gotten rid of it, so, there's something.
Yeah, the time could come. Well, congratulations. So who was your pro?
It was a Hooters Tour Pro. I mean, that's a pretty low. It doesn't even exist anymore. The tour.
So not the highest level of pros.
No, it was not a PGA Tour event. It was a Hooters Tour event. So, but there were Hooters girls driving the cart, the alcohol and snacks carts around.
I kind of imagined that your foursome would be like you, some low-level pro, and two girls in orange short shorts.
Are those called hot pants? Is that what those are called?
Maybe. I don't know.
It was not, in fact. It was four members of the staff with the golf media outlet that I worked at, and one touring pro.
I see. So. But Hooters ladies driving you.
Driving the carts, the alcohol carts and things.
Oh,
of that
did you have to walk? Was it like real rules? Did you?
Oh no. We had our own carts too. Do you know? You were mentioning Black Friday, and the Ray family did something over Black Friday that we hadn't done in, I'd say, 10 years. And no, the answer is not get along for a full day.
Oh, come on! There's so many jokes here.
I know, right?
So
our friend Dan, who designed our new
logo, yes,
Ghosts of Harrenhal design with the raven on the microphone and the fire and ice behind, he is starting a photography business, and he's trying to build his portfolio, and he asked if we would allow him to take family pictures of us. So we got all decked out as we could be anyway. And went and had family pictures taken, and Dan did a great job. He was very professional. His subjects, I felt like his subjects were less than professional, though. It was fine. I mean, the pictures are turning out great. He's kind of sending them piecemeal, and they're turning out really great. But man, I'm just reminded every time I see a picture of me, I'm reminded how old I'm getting. I said to him, he posts them on Facebook, and I was like, Dan, these are great, but what'd you do to my hair? I think the angle you took it at, it looks like my hair is missing.
Yes, Dan's going to have to work on that.
Yeah. But it was very nice. And he took some senior pictures of Molly, which apparently is not something that folks in the UK fully understand, because I was telling another colleague of ours who's from Scotland this same thing, and she said, I don't know what you're talking about. First of all, she said family pictures are the most American thing that she'd ever heard of.
Check.
And you could never get folks from Scotland to take family pictures in such a fashion. And she had no idea what senior pictures were. So I had to explain that the senior year of high school is your final year of high school. And it's tradition that kids get their pictures taken outside of the one that goes in the school yearbook.
Also American.
Yes. But she saw the pictures on Facebook, and she said, I have to say, those are very nice pictures. I wish I could get my family to do it.
That's the thing. Americans do these things that make the rest of the world snicker at them, but they get something nice out of it. I mean, you put in the groundwork. You deserve the nice things you get.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. I can live with that.
I've brought my British ethos to my American family, and we don't do any of these things.
Well, we paid hundreds of dollars for Ethan to get senior pictures, and I think we gave 10 to family members, and about 2 are hanging and sitting in various places in the house, and the rest are sitting in a box somewhere that haven't been opened in 6 years. So
yeah. But that's what happens with Lucas's school photos,
Right.
We have that in the UK. We have school pictures annually.
Right. Yes.
Where a photographer comes to the school and takes a picture of every kid. We
Right.
have those, but they never got used. They're sitting there in a folder.
Yeah. Same with our senior pictures for the most part, which is why we jumped on the opportunity to have them done for free.
All right, let's get down to business. How did we leave Arya Stark? Last we saw of Arya, she and Sandor the Hound Clegane had spent a bit of time in the Mountains of the Moon, but weather and newly armed mountain clans had convinced them to retreat back towards the Riverlands. He thinks Riverrun is the best chance of a reward. She hopes to go to Jon in the north. He is not willing to help. Sandor Clegane, not Jon. He might be willing to help. But,
Good distinction. Good distinction.
Arya had wolf dreams of Nymeria finding her mother's corpse in the river and has accepted that Catelyn really did die. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Well, Arya and the Hound arrive at the old Inn at the Crossroads, a place where they'd first fallen out, no less. The inn has lost some of its charms with a skeletal figure hanging in a cage outside. But despite the inhospitable sign, the Hound needs wine. Arya reluctantly follows him in. The room is occupied by the new proprietors, as well as a handful of locals, but dominated by 3 soldiers mistreating the serving girls. Arya recognizes them, and they recognize Clegane.
They're Gregor Clegane's men, Polliver, the Tickler, and a pimply young squire. The last of these tries to bait the Hound, who ignores the insults. The Hound orders a flagon of wine and chugs a good portion straight from the flagon before filling the cups. The room quickly empties, leaving only the 3 soldiers and Arya and the Hound. Speaking of threes, Arya notices 3 blades on Polliver, a longsword, a dagger, and a slim blade too long to be a dirk, but too short to be a sword.
Curious.
The
soldiers share news of the realm. King Joffrey is dead. Arya feels the news should make her happy, but with Robb dead as well, what does it really matter? But there's more news to share. Sansa Stark killed the king with a spell and then fled, leaving her husband Tyrion Lannister to face the music. Arya struggles to believe that one. Sansa doesn't know any spells.
The news bulletin continues. Walder Frey will hang Edmure Tully if his uncle, the Blackfish, doesn't concede Riverrun, which is under siege. But the most shocking bit of news is left for last. Seems that the Lannisters have found Sansa's sister. She's headed north to wed Roose Bolton's bastard. Arya's confused. They don't have another sister. The Hound finds this bit of news laugh out loud funny, but doesn't share the reason with the rest.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes. When the Hound asks about salt pans, the Tickler says he's sure Gregor would prefer his brother return to Harrenhal with them. The Hound isn't interested. In a sudden move, the Tickler throws a knife at Sandor, who anticipated and dodges the knife. But now the fight is on. Arya quickly realizes that the Hound is drunk, too much wine too fast on an empty stomach. He takes on Polliver and the Tickler. Arya throws a stone cup at the squire's face, dropping him to the floor.
Sandor is losing the fight. He's taken several bad cuts, including losing his burned ear. Arya is too distracted by the fight to notice that the squire has recovered and grabs her arm. She turns, unsheaths his dagger, and sticks him in his guts with it. Meanwhile, Sandor finally puts an end to Polliver with a wicked slash that splits his head in two. The Tickler backs away from Sandor and Arya stabs him in the back.
Arya then releases pent-up fear and anger on the Tickler. She stabs him over and over and over again, repeating the questions he asked the villagers on the march to Harrenhal. The Hound has to drag her off the man's corpse. It's then that they notice the sobbing young squire. Sandor tells Arya she has to give the scared boy mercy. Arya takes the slim blade off of Polliver and slides Needle into the boy's heart.
It was Needle!
It was Needle.
I'm sorry for celebrating the recovery of Needle when this poor child just died. But
yeah, it's kind of an awkward time to be celebrating, but at the same time, Needle's back.
Yeah. The pair leave and head for the salt pans. The Hound is weak and losing blood fast. That evening, Arya cleans and dresses his wounds. Later, Arya recites her nightly prayer and feels odd leaving out Polliver, the Tickler, Joffrey from the list. She also realises she's left the Hound out too. But she reminds herself of Micah's fate, admitting she didn't know him that long, and throws the Hound on her list, along with a Valar Morghulis for good measure.
The next day, the Hound falls from his saddle and can go no further. He wants Arya to give him mercy, but she hesitates. Through sobs, he reminds her that he killed Micah, and he says that he should have raped Sansa. It doesn't have the effect he's hoping for, though. Instead, Arya rides off on Craven, leaving the Hound to die of his wounds.
6 days later, she arrives in Salt Pans. She sells Craven to a woman who openly rips her off, assuming the scroungy-looking girl stole the palfrey. Arya offers the coins to a ship captain for a passage to Eastwatch. The man says it's not enough money and it would not matter. They are headed for Braavos. Thinking quickly, Arya digs out the old iron coin Jaqen H'ghar gave her and gives it to the captain. She then confidently says, Valar Morghulis. The stunned captain offers her passage and her own cabin.
Wow, that's a quick turn of events there.
Jaqen H'ghar said it would bring her to Braavos. I mean, he was...
Yeah.
It obviously has some power. Yep.
Yeah. So I told everyone at the end of last chapter, 2 old enemies and 1 long-lost friend. And,
Needle.
Needle was the long-lost friend. How cool. We've got Needle back.
Yeah. Which, I mean, especially for Arya, because, I mean, she's so detached from all of her family. It is a connection to, and a connection to one of her living relatives, no less, which has got to be exciting for her.
Yes. For someone that's lost as much as she has, to be reconnected with something from a simpler, more innocent time that means so much to her, I'm sure will mean a lot.
I know you absolutely hate it when I do this kind of thing to you, but does she believe that Rickon and Bran are dead?
She does, yes.
She does.
She was in Harrenhal. She was in Roose Bolton's chamber when the news was revealed.
Yeah, so I mean, really, she only has Jon and Sansa left, right? In her
mind. And in this chapter, she thinks with Sansa having fled that she's the last Stark because Jon is technically a Snow and he's stuck at the wall anyway.
Right, that Sansa must go into hiding and so can never reveal herself as a Stark because of what she's done.
Sure, yeah, that would make sense.
So the inn, this is not there's been several inns in this book. The inn that's cropped up the most often in this book is the Inn of the Kneeling Man, which is further west into the Riverlands. This is the inn at the Crossroads, which famously, for us at least, was where Micah and Arya sparred, and Nymeria wounded Joffrey, and Lady was put to death, and Nymeria ran away at Arya's insistence. So this is where all that happened. And if I remember rightly, the proprietress was Masha Heddle.
Masha Heddle, yes. It still upsets me that Tywin killed her, and it was just totally unnecessary, leaving her in that. Is it gibbet or gibbet? However that term is pronounced. Gibbet. Leaving her in that gibbet. I was wondering if she still has the stained red teeth from the sour leaf, because her teeth would still be intact.
You think the skeleton outside might be her?
Yeah, it's a woman. She says, her description to us is a woman's skeleton. I'm not sure how she knows it's a woman's skeleton, if it's a skeleton, but...
In a dress, perhaps?
Maybe. But I assume it's Masha, because that's how we last saw her. It was in that exact position out in front of the inn.
Just a reminder, of course, as well, that this is also where Catelyn arrested Tyrion.
Yes,
triggering the events of these books, really.
Yeah, yes. Triggering the war that is still going on here. So yeah, definitely.
So Polliver and Tickler, we've never quite lost sight of them because of Arya's prayer, but remind us who they are. The Tickler I got, because the Tickler is the one who butchered everyone.
Yes, correct.
And wanted to know whether there was any gold buried in the village and that kind of thing. And so those are the questions she fires back at him as she stabs him to death over and over and over again. But who?
Right. Primarily, he was looking for Beric Dondarrion,
Right,
and also
that's right, yeah.
asking those other questions. And regardless of if the villagers cooperated or not, he tortured them to death. So he's on Arya's nighttime prayer list for obvious reasons.
Yeah, but Polliver.
So Polliver, he was involved in that same group of Gregor Clegane's men that captured Arya, Hot Pie, and Gendry, and then Lamy, who was killed before the march from the God's Eye up to Harrenhal. He was added to her nightly prayer list for taking Needle. So, you know.
Well, she could have just taken Needle and left him alive, really.
Well, the Hound.
Yes, true.
The Hound had something to say about that when he took the guy's head off. But the last we saw of Polliver, he was leaving Harrenhal with Tywin's army. He was part of Gregor Clegane's van, and he was wearing Gendry's bull helmet at that time, which there was no sign of in this chapter.
Oh, because
you'd think she would have mentioned that.
Yeah, she would have mentioned it if she'd seen it. So obviously he lost it along the way somehow. The pimply squire, we never get his name. We don't know who he was. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I will say he is rather the author of his own demise, because Polliver and the Tickler were well happy to not engage with Sandor Clegane. But the pimply squire triggered all this with his drunken mockery of the Hound.
Learn to read a room, man.
Exactly.
I mean, come on. I know he was drunk, but when adults in the room are clearly disquieted by the Hound's presence, it's time to just shut up and sit quietly. And he was saying things like, "Is this the puppy that piddled in the rushes and ran away?" And,
right.
And Sir said he tucked his tail between his legs when the battle got too warm in King's Landing. So, just really dumb things that you don't want to say to a man of his size and demeanor.
I mean, quoting what the Mountain said about his brother is actually, that's not the end of the world. But I would want the Mountain between me and the brother when I say those things. You know what this guy said about you?
That would be the way to do it. Hide behind him, pop your head out from around his hip or something.
So Arya and the Hound hear the news from the realm, and we get to see how they react to it. Joffrey's death, which of course is huge news, and I mean, really she trims down her prayer a lot in this chapter. But
she does.
That's the first of them. Joffrey's gone. Sansa's accused and fled. That Tyrion and Sansa were married. That was a piece that came out. We didn't even bother to mention that in the summary, but she fled, leaving her husband to face the music. It was like, wait a minute, Tyrion and Sansa were married?
Right.
That the Mountain holds Harrenhal, that Riverrun is under siege, and that Arya Stark, although they didn't name her as Arya, but presumably
Sansa's sister,
she'll figure out if there isn't another sister, who could this be? It's you, Arya. You've been found, and you are to marry Ramsay Bolton, and it must be confusing.
Yes. I feel like there's three primary bits worth discussing out of the news of the realm that we get here. The first one is funny, that the Boltons have Arya, and the Hound gets quite the kick out of that. It's something like they found the sister she's meant for Bolton's bastard, and Arya totally misses the fact that the irony, how funny this is. She thinks it's just a mistake. That wait, we don't have a third sister. Who could they be talking about?
But there is a serious aspect to that, which is, I mean, presuming Arya's story is not over for this book, she's now got a reason to dislike the Boltons, because the Boltons would not be gifted Arya Stark had they not done some great service to the Lannisters.
Right.
So
yes.
But actually, just let's noodle on that. Did she see the Boltons fighting the Stark men at the Twins, or was it too confusing?
It was. I can't recall specifically, but she may have noticed that there were.
But anyway,
Boltons.
This would be confirmation for her. So,
right,
the Boltons are now on her. The Boltons are going to get added to that prayer to make up for all the people she lost in this chapter.
She's got to add some more. She's not going to have anything to say before bed. The other bit of news is that there was fighting at Raventree, and in the most recent Jaime chapter, we learned of the Riverlands houses that were back in the King's Peace, and the Brackens were mentioned and not the Blackwoods. And we had mentioned at the time, we had discussed at the time that, are the Blackwoods staying loyal to the Tullys because the Brackens didn't stay loyal, or are they just blindly loyal to the Tullys here? And of course, we discover in this chapter that the Brackens are sieging Raventree, which is the seat of House Blackwood. So, that figures that those two were, as soon as the opportunity presented itself, they were going to be at each other's throats.
Exactly. One of those two houses is always under siege by the other one, constantly.
Right. Yes. And the third bit is that Walder Frey is threatening to execute Edmure Tully if his uncle Brendan Blackfish Tully doesn't give up Riverrun.
Right.
Logical threat to make.
Yes. And we're more inclined to believe that one. We're more inclined to believe the last two because A, we know the first one is incorrect in some ways.
Right.
But we also know that they're getting their information wrong about other things from further away. But Raventree and the twins are in the Riverlands, and so this is kind of local knowledge that Edmure is going to be executed. So more reliable. The length of the communication spans from King's Landing, for instance, mean that Sansa killed the king with a spell becomes the fact rather than stupid made-up nonsense.
Fair point. Yes, that's true. It is much closer source for the information. But, the problem with this threat is if he does execute Edmure, then the Blackfish would have no reason to give up Riverrun. True,
which makes it an empty threat. But
kind of.
I guess you put a target date on it, You've got 3 days to give up Riverrun or I kill him. That's the way you do it.
But I guess so. In 3 days, though, if they kill Edmure, then, Riverrun, the whole thing about Riverrun is it's so difficult to siege because, it's
which is
kind of an island out there.
But you march Edmure to the walls and you say 3 days from now, you'll see this guy die unless you give up.
Yeah. Like Roderick Cassell and his daughter Beth Cassell. That's how.
Right, exactly.
That's how they ended up getting into Winterfell in the first place. Yeah. Oh, and this part of the chapter is full of news from the realm, but there's no mention of Gregor's current state.
Right, they're inviting.
It doesn't seem that they know.
Yeah, they're inviting the Hound back to Harrenhal, but he's not there.
Yeah, well, they know that he went to King's Landing, but they don't know how the trial by combat went against Oberyn Martell. Their Sir, as they keep calling him, is in no position to care what his little brother is doing right now.
Yeah. I wonder if maybe like Beric Dondarrion's men, they don't even think about the threat to him because they just see him as utterly invincible.
Right. Yeah, that very well could be. After the news of the realm segment of the conversation is done,
no, it's like at the end of the news they have like a light-hearted story. Yeah,
right.
Why don't you come with us to Harrenhal?
Yes. Oh, the Hound asks about salt pans, and they're like, I don't know about salt pans, and the Tickler says, I think that your brother would rather you come back to Harrenhal with us or to King's Landing. And the Hound has no interest in doing that. And the Tickler just stretches. He kind of straightens up and stretches and reaches his hand behind his back, behind his neck, and whips a dagger at the Hound. And the Hound apparently has seen this trick before because he anticipates it and successfully dodges, but that's what starts the all-out fight that we get here.
Yeah, I will say, I wonder if the Tickler made a sort of tactical error there because Sandor was drinking himself into stupor.
Right.
Let him keep drinking before you engage in this fight.
Sure. Yeah, he didn't show any signs of slowing down.
Right. But he was going to.
He had waited another.
He was going to.
If he had waited another 10 minutes, he might have been able to just frog march him out, you know?
I mean, he died because he was drunk here. I'm sure of it. Because I think he could have handled those two by himself.
I agree.
But Arya said he was slurring his words, so...
Yeah. But when the fight breaks out, Arya actually she's heavily involved, ends up killing more men than the Hound does.
She does, that's right.
Comes down to it.
I mean, she wouldn't have killed... No, she kills the Tickler by herself, right? I mean...
Yeah, she stabs him in the back and then stabs him over and over and over again. Yeah. And she ends up killing the squire in kind of the same fashion as she killed the stable boy in the Red Keep.
With Needle.
With Needle, that's right. That's how she finishes him off. The first stab is the boy's own dagger.
But the stable boy was with Needle too, right?
Yes, it was. So, based on my quick estimation here, I think that's 4 close combat kills, which is just horrifying for like a 10-year-old child. And you could see the pent-up rage and frustration come out when she's killing the Tickler and just
particularly
stabbing
towards
him
the
over and over again.
Particularly towards the Tickler, I think. I'm not sure she would have done the same to Polliver, but to
I
Tickler
agree.
was just a monster who needed it.
Yeah, and then later at the end of the chapter, when the lady who she's selling the horse to once says, "I'm going to rip you off. You're going to take what I give you because I know this isn't your brother's horse." She thinks about killing the woman, but there's too many onlookers for her to do so, and
yes,
I just worry. I worry about her state of mind.
You've lowered the barrier to what you should not do so much by this point. I will say though, that her kills to this point have all been basically in self-defense, or at least in extremis. There was very little. There was very little else she could do than kill those people.
Yeah. The most debatable one would be the guard at Harrenhal.
Yeah.
She baited him with that coin and then stabbed him. But again, she was trying to escape what she thought was a very dangerous situation. Yeah. But I worry, some of her thoughts, like she wishes that either she could have watched Joffrey die or killed him herself. That's really unhealthy for anyone, but especially a 10-year-old. And even just this bedtime prayer list of people that she wants dead is incredibly unhealthy. So
yeah, although compared to everything else, it does seem fairly tame.
Right?
These are people I don't like. Is not as bad as, and I will recite them every night. Is not as bad as all the things she's actually doing and thinking.
Right. Fair point. And we've talked about her list getting shorter, but she might lose the mountain as well, although she doesn't know it.
True enough, yeah. Oh,
he's dying right now.
Why is the mountain on her list?
Because of the march from the God's Eye to Harrenhal.
Oh, yes.
Terrible things.
Yes. Pretty much, yeah. There's quite a lot of her list was formed on that march, wasn't it? It was...
Yes.
She, in giving the prayer, the last time she gave the prayer, she forgot to mention the Hound. She did throw him on again at the end, but is this a sign that their camaraderie has gotten to the point where she's actually forgetting and forgiving? She herself thinks to herself at one point in this that she barely remembers Micah. She only knew him for a few hours.
Yeah. I have to imagine that when you've ridden so long and you've tended a man's wounds, that it's hard not to make a connection.
Right. She's been through way more with the Hound than she ever did with Micah,
Right, yeah.
But it's kind of like the original sin for him here. She can never quite forgive him. And the thing is, she is going to give him the mercy he's asking for, the Hound. But he then makes a
till he opens his mouth.
He makes a miscalculation. He tries to steal her into doing it by reminding her of how awful he is. But that has the opposite effect. She's like, well, why would I give you mercy? I mean, this is what, I'm projecting what she was thinking. Why would I give you mercy when you've done all these awful things to Micah, to Sansa? I'm going to let you bleed to death in a horrible, nasty way.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty powerful, emotional scene with him sobbing. Yet while he's sobbing and asking her for mercy, speaking of these horrible things that he's done, like killing Micah and laughing about it, and the things that saying things that he wishes he had done to Sansa, like he wishes he had raped her and ripped her heart out, and it's you can tell as an adult reading it, you can tell that what he's trying to do here. Right. But she's not picking up on it, it seems.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you can imagine that the trauma that he suffered as a child kind of halted his emotional development in certain ways. And it just, you can feel his pain, and he feels like a huge man inside a child's mind whose face was burned by his brother.
Yeah. It is kind of like a sad moment to lose him, though, because, his character was always an interesting addition to the book. And to lose him just at the point where Arya is forgetting about Micah and forgetting to include him in her prayers, it's kind of like maybe there's a new future for Sandor in this book. And then he gets killed off. It's very George Martin.
Oh yeah, definitely. I all good points. Yeah, it does feel like this could have been a new start for him, possibly, especially if they got to Salt Pans, they were going to try to go to the Vale. Maybe he and Arya would have continued to develop their relationship.
Yeah,
and maybe that would have been good for him to have a young girl to take care of, and might mellow him a little bit.
So where is Salt Pans? Help me.
So Salt Pans is on the very far west coast of the Bay of Crabs, where the Trident spills into the Bay of Crabs. The peninsula of Crackclaw Point separates Blackwater Bay from the Bay of Crabs.
Right.
So Salt Pans is kind of just straight due north of King's Landing and south of the Mountains of the Moon.
Okay, gotcha. So when Arya gets there, she tries to sell the horse to the lady. The lady is convinced that Arya is not well born, incorrectly, but understandably. And also, it's also a good reason to justify fleecing her as much as you want.
Yeah. I was thinking, when I read that part, I was thinking her mother and Septa Mordain would be rolling over their graves hearing that bit. Like, we tried so hard to make her a respectable young lady. She wouldn't listen.
So she asks the captain if he will take her to Eastwatch by the Sea. What do you think her plan was there? I mean, presumably to walk the wall to find Jon. Yes, that's...
Yeah. It's probably best, honestly, that he rejected that idea because, she's a child, so her plans aren't fully formed here, but I don't think she has any idea how far of a distance it is from Eastwatch by the Sea to Castle Black, and I don't think she has proper attire. What's she going to do when she gets to Eastwatch? Yeah. So,
yeah.
And when, let's say she made it all the way to Castle Black, little does she know, but Jon is not in a great position to host his little sister right now.
True. And plus, I mean, you can't even say to the Night's Watch, hey, I've come to visit my brother. They'll be like, well, he's not your brother anymore. He's our brother.
Right.
It's not like they have family visitations,
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghosts Harrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes. Yes. And so the captain says to her, when she says, I want to go to Eastwatch by the Sea, he says, there's only war, cold, and pirates in the north, and so, none of that is for us. And he mentions that he saw a dozen pirate ships headed north, when this ship was heading into Salt Pans. And that feels an awful lot like Salador Sands' ships taking Stannis to Eastwatch by the Sea.
I didn't make that connection, but that's absolutely what he meant. Yeah. Interesting. So the coin changes his mind. She says Valar Morghulis, and the captain responds Valar Dohaeris. And they mean... What do they mean, Mackelly? Valar Morghulis means all men must die.
Yes, and Valar Dohaeris means all men must serve.
Ah, I see. So basically, it's kind of like she threatened him, and he said, okay.
Kind of. So just to refresh everyone about this coin that she's had for a while and how she ended up with it. After Jaqen H'ghar helped her overthrow Amory Lorch with the weasel soup in Harrenhal, and then he changed his appearance, his face, became a totally different face. Arya asked him, "Hey, you teach me that trick?" And Jaqen said, "You have to come with me across the narrow sea to learn." And she said, "Well, I can't do that right now." So that's when Jaqen gives her the coin and says, "If you ever want to find me again, give this coin to any man from Braavos and say Valar Morghulis." And that's how all this came to pass.
Yeah, and of course, the reason she said no at the time was because she was still trying to find her mother. She was still on her way to Riverrun.
Yes.
Was the hope there, yeah.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And, coincidentally, Arya doesn't know what Valar Morghulis means.
Oh, right.
She knows to say it, but he never said what it means. But, so coincidentally, she's fittingly using it as part of her nighttime death wish prayer, despite not knowing that it means all men must die, which, kind of fits. She just doesn't realize that it kind of fits.
Right.
But, yeah, so the ultimate question there is, why does the coin have such a dramatic effect on this sea captain? And there's a lot of theories out there. I did some searching to see what people were thinking.
Well, let me throw out my theory on this, okay? So
yes, please do.
So, one theory. Jaqen H'ghar is a faceless man, one of these assassins that can... And that makes a certain amount of sense. He's clearly a killer.
Yes, and he changed his face.
And he changed his face, which feels like the kind of thing that someone called a faceless man might be able to do. So there's that.
You would think so.
And the faceless men are renowned, and one of the coin is an emblem of them. And they don't give them, despite the fact he gave one out rather cheaply, they don't give them out cheaply. They only give them out to people who they believe could make it as faceless men.
You would think so.
And that is why he gave her the coin, and that is why all people from Braavos respect the coin. This is someone who might become a faceless man. I ain't messing. I'm going to serve.
That is very, very close to most of the theories that I came across. Some twists were that because she said Jaqen H'ghar is the last one to die, and he was like, please pick another name, please pick another name. And then she did. She released him. That he gave her his calling card as you saved my life. Here is my calling card. So possibly this Bravasi captain thinks that she is a faceless man.
Oh, I kind of like that, actually. Yes.
Not like a recruit, but actually a faceless man.
I like that more in many ways, because I don't like her being a recruit, because she's a child who threw a pot of soup at someone. She's not a faceless man,
Right.
But
the captain doesn't know.
She strong-armed Jaqen H'ghar into a trick, and therefore he had to give her something of value.
Right, exactly. That's one of the more frequent theories that I came across. And it makes sense. I think there's a lot of things that add up in that theory.
Well, why don't we move on to some background, Mackelly?
All right. Well, so the pimply squire offered his father's gold for help getting him to a maester. So clearly the boy comes from some kind of nobility, or so it would seem. And when Arya and the Hound take the boy's cloak to make bandages for the Hound's wounds, Arya describes the cloak as being green with the green arrow on a white bend. and that perfectly describes the sigil of House Sarsfield. Now here's what I can tell you about House Sarsfield. It's a Westerland house, and I just told you about the sigil, and their house words are said to be true to the mark.
Okay.
We know that some Sarsfield men were with Tywin at Harrenhal because Arya saw their sigil when the army marched from the castle. And speaking of Sarsfield men, the only known other Sarsfield man is Sir Melwyn Sarsfield and his wife Cheryl Swift. I don't know Melwyn's relationship to the squire nor his role in the house, so can't help you much more there. As far as house history goes, all that I know is that the house was formed through the union of first men and Andal nobles.
Okay. Very
long time
very
ago.
Good. Very good.
So they're a pretty old house.
I knew a Sarsfield. I knew a member of House Sarsfield. I mean, just a guy with that last name. No.
Really? Wow.
It's not that weird, is it?
That's pretty cool.
I admit I've never known a Lannister or a Stark, so. Oh, that's not true. I do know a Stark, actually. There's a famous Australian cricketer called Stark.
Okay, there you go.
In comparison with the television show, the fight in the inn most assuredly does happen, and it does involve Tickler and Polliver, but it is a slightly different point in Arya's journey, and Sandor is not injured during that fight.
Oh, okay.
So her list does get shortened, but the Hound is not shortened from her list in that fight. But he does die in very similar circumstances at a later point in the TV show. The wound is actually given to him by, this is going to make no sense to book readers, Brienne of Tarth. Brienne of Tarth issues the blows that lead to his death.
I remember it. It was like a duel right? Over Arya?
But Arya goes AWOL during the duel. So the fact that Brienne effectively wins the battle is neither here nor there because she does not get Arya. But Arya stands over the Hound as he dies, and he begs for mercy in the same way he does in the book, and so she doesn't give it to him in the same way she doesn't give it to him in the book.
Okay, so there's some. It comes back to similar. At the end, sure. I guess.
Pedantry Corner.
Your pedantic spirit is back.
Oh, was this me? Yeah, I've already mentioned this, actually. I am surprised that people, especially those who know the Cleganes, aren't a little bit more circumspect around the Hound. Like, would that pimply squire say the same things to Gregor Clegane? I'm assuming not, because he was alive earlier.
Right. He was alive to walk into the inn in the first place.
But did he think, oh, this is the guy who had his face pushed into a fire by Gregor Clegane? He must be very soft and easily bullied. Let me bully him and see how that works out for us. It's
right. This like 6'6" tall behemoth of a man.
Exactly. I mean, he is a monstrous specimen with known fighting skills. I just did not understand. Again, it's the drink. You're making a good decision again, Mackelly, to avoid this. Who knows what fights you would get into with 7 feet monsters?
That is the question, isn't it?
So that was the only thing. But again, I can't really claim that one because it is a character decision.
It is. That's right. So it's just a talking point at this point.
News and notes.
So this might be one of my favorite news and notes that we have ever done. This news and notes is chock full of the coolest things. Okay. So I'll start with Spotify released their Wrapped thing that they do today. It's kind of like a year-end...
I know what we're talking about.
A year-end wrap-up.
Yeah.
Yes, a year-end wrap-up. They do it for listeners and they do it for podcasts. And it really, every year, it provides some humbling statistics. And this year was right up there. Some of my favorite stats were that this year we were streamed in 116 countries. Very cool. In fact, in this stat, India was the number 2 country for most new listeners.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was really surprised by that. It goes the United States 1, India 2, Canada 3, Germany 4, and the Philippines round out the top 5 for our new listeners.
Wow. We're good.
In 2023.
I have to take a world tour to visit everyone.
I know, right? Our Spotify followers were up 142% this year, 2023. So, and this might be my favorite stat of all, so I saved it for last. So they gave us a top 10, a top 5, and a number 1. So, of our listeners, that we were in the top 10 of their most listened to podcasts. On Spotify. It's only Spotify. Yeah. 6,600 listeners had us
in their top 10.
In their top 10. Yes.
Nice.
4,500-ish had us in their top 5.
Nice.
And 1,300 of our listeners, we were their number 1 podcast that they listened to all year long. Wow. So that was really neat.
That is awesome.
It was very neat. And I will say, I have seen, like I said, the Spotify does this Wrapped for podcast listeners as well. And I've been seeing messages coming in on our various social medias, and I've been so busy today with that work you levied on me and preparing for tonight's episode that I haven't had a chance to look yet, but I promise I will look and I will respond and I will love all the stats and all the things that you've sent.
Well, thank you all.
By the time you hear this, I will have done it.
Yes. Thank you all. That's fantastic news. Also great news, we've got 2 new Buy Me a Coffee sustainers. Devin joined as a landed knight and Seabrock as a squire. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. It's very cool, and we so much appreciate that.
I actually know a Seabrock. I wonder if that's the one I know. I know someone whose last name is Brock and whose first initial is C. So I might have to ask if that person is that one. It's actually actually one of my son's friends who I believe does listen. So it could be.
Okay. All right.
Cool. Bless if it's you. I mean, thank you anyway, Seabrock. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Come on. I always do these. It's your turn.
Okay. So, we got a review on Apple Podcasts from Mason Martell is the name, and the subject is best podcast ever. And it goes, one of the standout features of the Ghosts of Harrenhal podcast is its impeccable storytelling. The hosts, Simon and Mackelly, possess a remarkable ability to create discussions that are both engaging and thought-provoking. Each episode is carefully crafted, taking the listener on a captivating adventure through the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. This podcast is nothing short of brilliant.
Wow.
That review is nothing short of brilliant.
That's awesome.
I liked this review so much that I screen capped it and posted it on all of our social medias. I said, I have never met Mason Martell, but he might just be my new best friend.
He or she. Yes.
Or she, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Mason. That's terrific.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, that was good news and notes. You were right. I had no idea what half of it meant when we started. I was like, what is he talking about here? So let's conclude. Arya's free and now houndless and bound for Essos. So her story, it feels like her story could go anywhere from here. It must be an interesting point for the writer to have this. You know, you've taken this character and you've dragged them through the mire.
Oh, absolutely. Like nobody else in the book.
Exactly. Just awful. And now you've given her the world as her oyster to a certain extent. She's got this free pass to Braavos, which might get her something. We don't know what. But
she could keep going all the way to Slaver's Bay and meet up with Dany.
Right.
Who knows?
Right. Who knows? Exactly.
She could meet up with Jorah. He's a free agent these days.
That's true. That's how Jorah's going to get back into this story.
Right. Well, I will say this is the last Arya chapter of A Storm of Swords. So this is how we leave her for this book. And it's,
I believe that was true of season 4 as well. I think you see her sailing away. I forgot to mention this in comparison with TV. She has the same scene with the captain, and her last scene is them sailing out towards Braavos.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, she's truly alone for the first time since leaving King's Landing, and she's out of the Riverlands for the first time since leaving King's Landing too.
Yeah.
So
you see,
for 2 books,
you've seen these maps of the characters' journeys. Hers is like a big squiggle in the Riverlands for quite a long time.
A bowl of spaghetti.
Yeah.
She's certainly more equipped to be on her own this time than the last time when she was in King's Landing in Flea Bottom just trying to survive.
Yeah, she has
more
needle and a coin which is a Wonka golden tickets to Bravos. Yeah,
right. Could she just wander around Bravos presenting this coin to people and getting things?
Vala Morgulis.
And it seems like she's been drawn to Bravos for a while now. 2 men with serious influence in her life are connected to Bravos. You remember, Syrio Forel was the first sword of Bravos. And Jaqen H'ghar, who said he was from Lorath and used a Lorathi accent and dressed like a Lorathi, he apparently has some connection to Bravos because he gave her this coin, which is apparently only good in Bravos.
Right.
Yeah,
and how can you trust a man whose face can change his accent,
Right.
Presumably, be funny if he kept changing his face, but his accent was a dead giveaway.
Right. I know it's still you.
So Arya's kill list is probably halved in length. She's lost 4 in one chapter. She lost
with the Hound possibly to follow.
Well, yes, let's assume the Hound is dead, so that makes 5, right? She lost Polliver, the Tickler, Joffrey, the Hound, and probably the Mountain to follow.
Right.
Wow.
Yes. It's dangerous to be on her list.
Yeah, she's like a Dragonstone leech.
That's right. If Melisandre could get her hands on Arya, the 2 of them, they might be unstoppable.
Throw her on the fire, who knows?
Although I do find it worrisome that she has this list to begin with, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Again, I'll say the list is the least of her worries.
Well, yes.
She could stop saying the list. She will always have stabbed the Tickler to death multiple times.
Yes, she will have killed at least 4 people that I can think of off the top of my head.
And the Hound was a character. He will be missed. He wasn't a good guy, but he was a guy who lived by his own creed. And he was.
Yes, he did.
He was a wild card in just about any situation. He could change the storyline in any scene that he was in because he did things differently than convention.
He both killed Micah and saved Loras Tyrell when Gregor went to kill him during their after their joust. Yep. So we're losing another fantastic non-POV character like Brienne and Jorah, and it seems like we're not. With at least Brienne and Jorah, it's possible that one of them could become a POV, but it doesn't look like the Hound is going to get that opportunity. So,
yeah. And up next, we've got Sam the Slayer back at the wall. Exciting.
That's right, yeah. We're heading back to Castle Black, but we're not going to see things through Jon's eyes this time. We're going to see things through Sam's.
Well, there's 4 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a 5-star rating and a positive review like Mason Martell did. You can buy some merchandise. We've got some new stuff for the holidays at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal. Become a sustainer as Devin and Seabrock did, and that will help us out on an ongoing basis. Or you could just donate to our cause directly through our website, ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, keeping up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, you can go out and follow us on our social medias. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.